Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party Network. I'm Lee Hutchison, and joining me is resident globe-trotting film festival critic Dallas King. Dallas, how are you?
I'm fine. I survived the frostbite of my virtual trip to Park City in Utah.
I love the picture you posted online the other day of you in the body warmer.
I got that off eBay, you know, £10. I thought it was a good deal. It's a Sundance one. It's an official Sundance one. So.
You slightly betrayed the cold vibe that you're going for by having the rolled up sleeves. Like, you look like you were sort of like a bit too hot than cold.
Well, it's a delicate balance because I did have a mini heater on just out of shots. But it was pretty cold this weekend with the storms again. So I figured, I like to, if I can't get to a festival, I like to try and recreate that experience. So I know, was it 2 years ago with the London Film Festival? I felt like I was missing out. So I walked my wife to her yoga class in the centre of town, picked up a McDonald's breakfast, came back and sat on my doorstep eating it until it was time for one of the film screenings to go live. So.
You've certainly earned your title as like chief film festival critic at Flick Feast, no doubt about that.
Festival's editor,
Of course. So we're going to wrap up the second week of Sundance Film Festival, but first we're going to look closer to home as we preview the upcoming Glasgow Film Festival lineup. So the film festival will return as sort of a hybrid of in-person and at-home screenings, where some of the best sort of filmmakers in the world will have some new films showcasing, from Claire Denis, Paul Verhoeven, Joachim Trier, Sean Barker, Mia Hansen-Løve, Terence Davis, and Casper Noe. So it's going to be a tough one to pick what three films we're most looking forward to from this list. So for anyone that's kind of read through the lineup, there's a mixture of things that we might have seen at the London Film Festival, award screeners, and some that I've already kind of seen. So, and of course, it should be added that Red Rocket by Sean Baker was my film of the year last year, and it's one I'd highly recommend. So I'm not going to include that.
You're not going to include it as an official pick, okay?
No, but it's the best film of last year, so do go see it if you get
the hype train continues.
Yeah. So what was your kind of remit for picking your three? Because I know a few of these things have been sort of Sundance films recently too.
Yeah. So I was actually surprised there wasn't potentially more of a crossover between the festivals. I know that previous years there has been. I know Sundance this year went quite heavy on the horror, but there's not really any sort of crossover between that and the Fright Fest selection. So, but I do have one film that I'm going to recommend that I did see at Sundance. But everything else, like anything that I had seen already, I mean, like I haven't seen Red Rocket yet. I'm saving that one, but I have seen something like the Worst Person in the World. So I stayed clear of that because festivals are most of the time it's about finding new exciting films. So I've trawled through the list and I've come up with a few suggestions as well. So. Yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting festival because, like I say, it is hybrid as press. We're going to get access to an online portal, but there will be in-person press screenings, the gala screenings, the opening, closing, and then the International Women's Day screening of Happening will be taking place at multiple cinemas across the UK, including Belmont and Filmhouse. So the plan is to catch the outfit and Marina there rather than driving down through to Glasgow, because apparently, unfortunately, due to the existing restrictions, they are not going to have the opening night and closing night party. There will be drinks available in the screen when you arrive, but there's no party. So I will be saving my 2 days off that I get from working Granite Noir to go down for a certain film, and then also probably an extra screening of The Batman in the City that was The Batman's Gotham City for at least a couple of shots as he drives past Greg's on his Batcycle.
Yeah, so it's certainly going to be an interesting festival, and it will be interesting to see how these things evolve over the rest of the year. I mean, obviously, Edinburgh's been pushed back to August, and whether they'll embrace the hybrid model, whether London continues to sort of do a blend of both. it's going to be very interesting to see how these things unfold. I know it's been provided amazing opportunities for people. I mean, you just had to look at things like Letterboxd and social media last week to realise pretty much most of the UK's critics and film cultural journalists all were enjoying sort of the Sundance Film Festival.
The ungeo-blocked Sundance Film Festival, I might add.
Exactly, and not having to pay $20 a pop, but totally over that. But there's certainly a lot to pick from at Glasgow Film Festival this year. But what have you gone for with your first recommendation?
Well, my first recommendation is going to be a film which I did see at the Sundance Film Festival, and it is My Old School. Now, this is a documentary directed by John O'Macleod and stars Alan Cumming, in a sense, as a gentleman called Brandon Lee. Now, Brandon Lee attended Bearsden Academy in Glasgow in 1996 for a term, and safe to say that school year turned into the stuff of legend. I am not going to say any more about the plot because it's a strange one, because I talked to my parents about this after I'd seen the film. Said, "Did you remember the case of this person?" They said, "Oh yeah, no, I think I remember something about that on the news." Even though I would have been like 16 at the time, for some reason this story just completely passed me by. But this is basically a Scottish-born documentary that is right up the street for anyone who has spent lockdown sort of binging on these wilder, it must be seen to be believed, the truth is stranger than fiction documentaries where 20 minutes in, everything's going fine, and then suddenly the rug is completely pulled out from under you, and you're like, what's going on? And then, later on, there's another twist and another twist. The style of filmmaking is a lot of talking heads to lots of the people who were at the school at the time. The Brandon Lee in case was interviewed but did not want to appear on screen, so Alan Cumming takes his place and lip syncs the vocal performance, and because at one point he was signed on to portray Brandon Lee in a film based on this incredible story, and all the scenes talking about that school year are recreated in a sort of animation style very similar to Daria, if anyone watched that. So animated sitcom from the US that was a sort of minor character from Beavis and Butthead who got her own spin-off show. And yeah, there's also a few sort of references to Grange Hill and the like, which is nice to see. I think this one will play absolute gangbusters at the Glasgow Film Festival. They have a great history of picking documentaries which play well to their sort of homegrown target audience. Ne Passaran that sort of closed the festival a couple of years ago. So yeah, I think this one will do very, very well. It's been already picked up by Dog Wolf and we'll be getting a release later this year, but I think this will be one of the homegrown highlights of the festival.
Well, safe to say this was also on my list. It was one that, someone I saw that tweeted about it was like, they were sort of Glaswegian and they were like, they're based out now sort of in Utah, and they were flicking through the schedule and they were like, I remember this story, and I think it was definitely one of those ones that became sort of word of mouth and myth. And I just remembered sort of seeing that tweet a few weeks ago going, oh yeah, I think I heard about this one at school too. And it just completely got kind of triggered back into my memory. So yeah, this is one I'm really looking forward to seeing as well. It's one of those ones you hear the premise and you're like, surely not. And Dog Wolf do a really good thing of that. I mean, their output is just incredible. I mean, they really own the market in documentaries right now. I think it would be impossible for anyone to do a challenge to stay up to date with any of the films they're releasing. So yeah, this is one that's got me really interested, and I think it's more the reflections from individuals about looking back on it and how they allowed themselves to be hoodwinked by something like that. It just blows the mind, and I only know the basic premise. I don't know the why and the how behind it all, and again, I'm immediately gripped by wanting to know something like that. So I don't know where this film's going to go, but I'm immediately hyped to see it.
I think if anyone is listening to this and is tempted to Google, the story in advance, please don't. Just go in as cold as possible. I mean, a lot of people will know the ins and outs, but if you haven't refreshed your memory of what went on, go in as cold as possible. One of the best things about this documentary is, like you say, the shared collective memories that all these people have of the events. And then the best bit is definitely towards the end when they're confronted with either photographic or video evidence of certain scenes. And it's interesting to see how in their heads it's completely different to how the real life actually played out. And I thought that was really sort of interesting. So yeah, no, I think this is going to be a great film to watch, and yeah, go in as cold as possible if possible. It's Scotland's own version of Tiger King.
Well, I've gone for, well, considering that's one of my choices, I'll immediately dive into my second choice, and that's The Hermit of Traig. So it's by Lizzie Mackenzie. So if you're someone that's undertaking the 52 Films by Women pledge for the year, this is a good one to get going with. And it's a premiere at the festival as well. And it's kind of been a long in the making sort of portrait of an elderly hermit called Ken, who's been living in a sort of self-imposed isolation in the Scottish Highlands for over 40 years. And in that sort of time, he sort of has his own little log cabin near a loch. It's not far from Fort William, so as most people head up there to go see Harry Potter locations or sample some of the Highlands, this is a man that's just living there with no electricity or running water. He lives off the land, he fishes for his supper, chips wood, and even makes his own brew, alcoholic brew as well. So this is one I'm really interested to see. I mean, you kind of think about how difficult the past couple of years of lockdown and isolation has been at a time, but it's going to be interesting to see what we can kind of take away from this man's decision. And again, I'm curious about, well, how did this happen? Why did this happen? You know, how does this person achieve it? I feel like I've got a lot of questions about that, and I'm just curious to see how someone in that, you know, part of the world lives. And you know, I'm curious as well, you know, for someone that's been in isolation, is this something that it's away from people as well, for example? So I'm interested in sort of the logistics of the, you know, the story behind how this documentary has come to life. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how someone in our own country lives like that.
Yeah, no, this was one which actually I must have skipped on my sort of browse through the brochure. So yeah, no, I'll definitely be adding that one to my list as well. And next up for me, another homegrown talent. I know I think on previous podcasts, whatever, I may have been slightly overcritical of, say, like the Edinburgh Film Festival, often top and tailing, you know, with Scottish, you know, films highlighting the best of British and Scotland. But you know, I just looking around, these are the ones that, you know, stood out. So you know, and this one is called Angry Young Men, and it's written by Paul Morris, and it's basically, this is what got me. It was basically the description: a coming-of-age gangland comedy richly infused with echoes of the Wild Bunch and the films of John Carpenter. Sold. Fictional housing estate is the home turf for the Bramble Boys, a gang more likely to brew you a nice cuppa and fetch you messages than anything more sinister. But when a rival gang dares to swagger onto their territory in a merciless recruitment drive for new members, it means war, and a defining moment where everyone must decide where their loyalties lie and their future might hold. So if it's someone doing a sort of Scottish coming-of-age story in the style of like Assault of Precinct 13 or something, yeah, sign me up.
So I've mentioned this as one of the directors that's going to have a new film at the festival, and it was one actually a few years ago I expected to see another one of her films as the surprise film, but I've gone for Fire by Claire Denis. So radio journalist Sarah is blissfully happy in her life with Jean. Then Jean receives a business proposition from an old friend, Francesca's. Their trio have a history together, and long before Jean, Sarah was in love with Francesca. So seeing him again is almost more than she can bear, and Sarah is soon grappling with anguished realization that the embers of a former relationship could easily be rekindled. So when you think of Claire Denis, you can think of lots of lovely films. You know, you think of something like Let the Sun Shine In, which also starred Juliette Binoche. But then you can also get films that are, I think we spoke about it the other day with some friends, High Life, which can be quite interesting and you know, bold and so on, and you get things like Bastards as well. So you know, she can sort of be someone that threads a lot of different genres, and I think this one is going to be potentially sort of in the more sort of, you know, emotional side. You know, I think we've all seen potentially the little screenshot picture where it's got Juliette Binoche and Vincent Lindon fresh off his fantastic role in Titan, and you can kind of feel the sexual chemistry between these older actors. So, I'm really excited to see what kind of film Claire Denis is going to put out here. Often even the sweetest films can contain a little bit of a shock and a surprise. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what she does, and I'm just really excited to see a new Vincent Lindon film. Especially after his performance in Titan, I just can't wait to see what he does next.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a new Claire Denis film. Always good, I believe, because I think our next film after this is going to be, I think it's the one that she's going to be doing for A24. So, but I have to say I am surprised. I was fully expecting you to say your last choice was going to be Bergman Island, given it was a Mia Hansen love. Did it just miss out on the top three?
Unfortunately, I saw that one at London Film Festival, so it contains one of the best needle drops that you'll see at Glasgow Film Festival. I can guarantee that. I was tempted to put that in, but I had to stick to my rules of like what's the new films I'm going to go for. But would highly recommend Bergman Island to people.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's definitely on my list now, especially given that I've realised that in one of the younger couple in the movie, it's got Anders Danielson Lai, who's actually going to be who's also in The Worst Person in the World, and he was fantastic in that. So great to see him there again. And for me, I am going with my final choice. It's going to be another sort of veteran filmmaker, and again, often can deliver quite a shocking film, and that is going to be Vortex by Gaspar Noé. If possible, this is Glasgow Film Festival's words, not mine. It's his most daring and moving film. Most daring film from Gaspar Noé. I mean, wow, then you must be in for something. And the elderly couple, I mean, is played by an actress called Francois Lebrun, but also the male in that couple, horror maestro Dario Argento, spending their days in a Paris apartment. As the screen splits and the mood blackens, they share anxieties, and then they're... So, I mean, it just sounds... I mean, Gaspar, yes, always going to be pushing the envelope. And the fact that he's got Dario Argento acting in this, I am intrigued by that. So definitely we'll be trying to catch this one. And that looks like it's going to be distributed by Picture House Entertainment. So should be getting a pretty decent indie cinema push later on in the year as well.
Yeah, it seems like we've got a really nice mix of... I was close to picking that one myself, but I think we've got a really exciting kind of mix of documentaries, films, and kind of, local and foreign talent involved. So I'm looking forward to it. I think you always look at these festival lineups first and you always pick, what's missing? But then when you just sort of start to settle into the program, get the highlighters out, it's always amazing how much films you find that you want to see.
Yeah, and of course there's one film which we still don't know. So I mean, this is the fun part of the episode where we can put our money where our mouth is. And you want to take a stab at what the surprise film for Glasgow Film Festival will be, given like you say, there was maybe a few titles that you were expecting to see. It's always something pretty good. The previous one, all the way back in March 2020, was Promising Young Woman. So what do you think is going to be the surprise film?
I'll be honest, I'm drawing a short straw. Like I would have bet my life that it was going to be Red Rocket at first. I know there's been some suggestion of The Northman. Oh God, I'd love that to be true. I'd kick myself because I don't think I'm going to get a ticket for the surprise film this year. I would kick myself if I discovered it was that film. But yeah, it's always something that's really good. But I'm just kind of drawing a blank at the moment. I don't really have any sort of potential ideas, but I suspect you do.
I think Northman is probably not going to be it. When Promising Young Woman played, that had already screened at Sundance. So, I mean, to potentially have a world premiere is a bit of a stretch. However, I am going to put my money where my mouth is, and I am going to say that I hope and I think it might potentially be The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring Nicolas Cage as a semi-fictionalized version of Nicolas Cage who will take any job for money to pay off his taxes, and then has to attend the birthday party of his biggest fan in character. And yeah, I expect it looks like he's having a whale of a time. He's not taking himself too seriously. It's one of my most anticipated films of the year. It's out, I think actually the same day as The Northman, sort of mid-April. So timeline-wise, it kind of marries up. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's going to be my shout for it.
That sounds like a fantastic pick. I think, yeah, I'd be interested to see the betting odds on something like that. So are you going to go for the surprise film?
I am going to go for the surprise film, yeah. I think I'm going to go down. I'm going to catch another screening of The Batman. I'm going to take my new Arbats toy. I'm going to get some shots if I can figure out where in Glasgow it's been filmed. Maybe even catch a bit more of the Batgirl filming, which I hadn't realised they were filming the entire film in Glasgow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently so. And J.K. Simmons is in there now as well. So, I mean, these films have always like shot a couple of scenes or something in Glasgow, but apparently they're there for a good couple of months getting the whole film done. So I've heard some minor grumbles from a few shops that maybe didn't anticipate how long their shop fronts would have been turned into Gotham City ones. But I think we've got a similar situation to the infamous kebab shop from Avengers Infinity War that had the "We'll deep fry your kebab." Apparently, in the liquor store on one of the streets, there is a $5 bottle of Buckfast. So Buckfast made it to Gotham, which is nice.
So obviously, Sundance still had a couple of days left to run after we last spoke last Tuesday. Was there anything in that final stretch of the festival that you got to see, or I heard that you had award screeners so that films that kind of got nominated, then they got recycled into being able to watch it again. So how did you sort of finish off your time at Sundance?
Yeah, no, there was always that, there's that thing of you initially you book a load of films that you anticipate you're going to want to see, and then as it starts to move through the festival, you start to hear chatter on Twitter and read a few reviews where it's like, oh, actually, guys, you should really watch this, and you're like, I don't have that, and I've used up all my slots, and then turns out actually that I hadn't used all my premiere slots because most of the premieres were going on around about sort of 1-2 in the morning, so I was like, nah, not for me. So it meant that the premiere slots turned into award slots. I was able to catch a few things over the weekend as well. But in terms of highlights after the last time we talked, Aubrey Plaza delivers another wonderful performance in Emily the Criminal. I think she's the queen of Sundance. In my review, I worked out that she has, in the last 10 years since her first lead role in Safety Not Guaranteed, she's had 8 films premiere at Sundance, so quite a record. My Old School, which I saw as well, there's a fantastic documentary called Navalny about the Russian opposition leader who was poisoned in a flight between Siberia and Moscow, and sort of about him investigating his own attempted assassination. Really, really well made documentary there.
Oh, that sounds like my cup of tea. I'm immediately sold on that.
For me, the final highlight from my festival was one called Something in the Dirt by Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson. These are the guys behind Synchronic and The Endless and a few other films. They're also going to become, if you're not familiar with the names yet, you probably will be in about a month's time, because they're the two guys who have directed the Moon Knight series, which features Oscar Isaac doing an accent. And Something in the Dirt is sort of one of those sort of mockumentary films where it's about two guys who living in this apartment building and witness something strange going on. So they decide, hey, we should start filming this. We could turn it into one of those, paranormal documentaries. And then it starts to go off in different directions as they think it's not paranormal, but it's actually some sort of conspiracy. They start seeing numbers all over the place and equations and fractions and stuff. Basically, it turns into something which anyone who's a fan of Under the Silver Lake, the 5-star underrated A24 masterpiece, if you love that film, I think you'll really get a kick out of this one. It sort of goes around Los Angeles and sort of has this sort of conspiracy theory, what's going on and stuff like that. And it also plays with the tropes of the sort of found footage mockumentary genre as well. So yeah, that is one of my picks. So overall, top 5 from the Sundance Film Festival were After Yang, unsurprisingly, Watcher, Something in the Dirt, My Old School, and what was the other one? I think I've only given you and Fresh. So yeah, those were the top five for me. Guess we'll have to wait and see what comes to the UK. Obviously, after Yang will 100%. Watcher's just been signed up by IFC in America and also Shudder, so that sort of horror thriller should hopefully make it to the UK later this year with Shudder as well. But again, potentially that and Fresh, you might see them maybe not at the Glasgow Fright Fest, but potentially the one in London in August as well. So I think they're all ones which should break out of the Sundance Festival and make it overseas.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what makes the breakout, and it can often be so frustrating. I often feel for a lot of the critics and writers here, where they might be sitting on reviews for films that people will never get the chance to see, or will then just randomly appear on some Netflix in, you know, Australia, but never the rest of the world. It must be so difficult for so many people to kind of get their work out there and kind of get things all matched up.
I think so, yeah. It's a tricky one, especially when it's all done virtually. You know, you would be having people sort of going into screenings, out of screenings, making deals in the local coffee shops and stuff like that. You'd have the directors and stuff would be working the press as hard as they can, but, you know, they're now limited to Zoom and stuff like that. But there has been a few sort of breakout hits. I know that Cha Cha Real Smooth, which I liked, didn't love, but I liked it. I thought it was charming. It's got Dakota Johnson in it, who's just always utterly watchable. It feels like a 20-something sort of, I say 20-something, I think Garden State was probably aimed at 20-somethings all the way back in like 2004. So it's sort of that kind of, you know, guy coming out of college, you know, not sure what he wants to do with his life, sort of coming of age film. So that got bought by Apple TV for $50 million now. Apple TV bought Coda last year from Sundance, and that is managed to sustain its momentum all the way out through the year. It's got a PGA nomination as one of the sort of top films of the year, so we could see it at the Oscars. So they're clearly got high hopes for Cha Cha Real Smooth as well, which, if you hadn't guessed already, yes, does feature use of Cha Cha slide.
Usually after like a film festival, or even during a film festival, we always kind of need that sort of like blockbustery kind of base comedy to sort of be a bit of a tonic. This is just my long way of saying, after like 2 weeks of intense Sundance films, drama, Twitter beef, how excited are you for Jackass coming out on Friday to be a bit of an antidote to that world?
It's a weird one. It's like, it's slowly sort of crept up on me. When they first announced it, I was like, yeah, but yeah, I think if ever there is a film needed for the times that we are in, I think it's a film where grown men get punched in the balls. Because let's face it, we've all been punched in the balls repeatedly by COVID over the last 2 years, so it's nice to see it to happen to someone else.
I think I saw it. Where was it not like it was originally meant to come out the same day as June and the French Dispatch last year? So it was one of those ones. I remember people going, right, that's the $1 million question. Which movie are you going to see on opening day? And I'll be honest, my answer was Jackass first. I would have seen all three, but Jackass would have gone first. I mean, I've just seen the trailer once, and I was immediately grimacing in my seat or gasping just as something's about to smack someone in the balls. So I'm very excited for this. It's like, this is the first big release of 2022 for me. So I can't wait to talk about it next week. And, you know, that I don't know what the counter programming is. Jackass the counter programming to Moonfall, or is Moonfall the counter programming to Jackass? It remains to be seen, but we'll certainly discuss both next
Jackass
week.
Is the counter programming to the Souvenir Part 2. Definitely.
Oh, that's a good shout. Well, we will be back next week for an interesting double feature of films to review. But thanks everyone for listening.
The moon will fall.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.